When it comes to special effects, Game of Thrones is hands down a king.
Impressive.
Shut up.
Even when matched against gargantuans like Marvel, DC, and the like. From mind-blowing in-your-face special effects to the very subtle, we're gonna talk dragons, battles, and effects you didn't even know were CGI. But before we get started, make sure you take a quick moment to click on that subscribe button. You'll join our notification squad and stay up to date with these types of videos and more. Also, be wary for major spoilers ahead.
Let's give them fair warning first.
You have been warned. Cept explosion. One of the best scenes we had to include on this list is when Cersei asserts her dominance in the realm. Not only was it fantastic, it was unexpected, and the effects behind it were mind-blowing. For those who need a quick refresher, Cersei was at war with the High Sparrow after he essentially took her hostage, tortured her, and had her perform the almighty Walk of Shame. Shame! The High Sparrow finally was able to gain a strong foothold within King's Landing and was set to condemn Cersei to death for her actions. As the world watches the opening of the final episode of Season 6, there's dead silence felt globally as the nearly dialogue-free 20-minute-plus scene unfolds. It's not until finally the candle flame sparks the wildfire and it erupts into a green firestorm barreling through the corridors beneath the cept. It cuts to the face of the High Sparrow and the wildfire bursts through the floor, engulfing him, and we watch as the great cept explodes into chunks. The world collectively gasped during this moment as we all watch the great cept crumble from Cersei's balcony. To top it all off, we watch helplessly as Cersei's last son jumps out the window, leaving Cersei to rule as queen with only her brothers as family left. Loot Train Attack. The Spoils of War was the 64th episode in Season 7, which fans had desperately been waiting for since Daenerys walked out of the fire with her dragons. Since the Loot Train Attack scene was written, the executive producers knew right away this was going to be much larger than the Battle of the Bastards. The attack had mostly all the same elements from the Battle of the Bastards, with the large armies, weapons, body parts, and more needing to be duplicated, except there was one much larger difficulty they faced. There was the addition of practical effects like explosions and fire. And oh yeah, Daenerys' dragon, Drogon. Drogon is the size of a 747 airplane with intense detail in the scaly skin, flapping wings, and the detail of the fire spewing out of its mouth. The scene required Emilia Clarke to ride a mechanical bull-like contraption in front of a green screen. This also had to be synced to the actual animation of Drogon to give the photo-real appearance she was riding him. Couple all of the above with an insane amount of real-life explosions and setting over 20 stuntmen on fire, and you have one killer sequence.
Blood of my blood.
Dragons. When it comes to special effects in Game of Thrones, fans go nuts for Daenerys and her 3 dragons. When we first saw them emerge from the fire in the final scene in Season 1, imaginations went wild for what chaos they'll bring. When it comes to filming sequences, it's already costly for all the props, costumes, cast, crew, and special effects. Everything has to be planned down to the smallest detail. But add a dragon, and it has to be planned down to a single frame. This is because for every frame recorded with a dragon required in that scene, those dragons need to obviously be animated. With 12 frames or more per second, filming 5 seconds for a shot opposed to 4 seconds costs substantially more. You may be surprised to find the dragons were designed based around real animals. They are a massive compilation of alligators, lizards, horny toads, bats, and many more. The VFX team created a massive database of creatures and would circle parts of creatures they liked. This also includes the minute color shading of specific creatures in nature. The hours spent to create each dragon is countless. Thousands of hours went into the dragons from inception to realization. White Walker Viserion. Fans never seem to get enough of seeing the dragons, especially in the earlier seasons when they were rare. Sometimes it felt as though an entire season went by without seeing a dragon. Of course, this is because of how ridiculously expensive and intense planning they take to film. However, when it comes to Season 6 and especially Season 7, the Game of Thrones team seemed to go all out in providing us as much dragon as we could handle and then spiced it up. The second to last episode of Season 7 left most of the internet jaw-dropped, saddened, and some crying when Viserion, one of Daenerys' dragons, was killed by the Night King. In the final second of the episode, when Viserion was dragged out of the waters by the White Walkers and its eye opened, we knew we were in for even more a shock in the final episode of Season 7. Far more mind-blowing than the White Walkers stealing a dragon was when Viserion shot out blue flames and destroyed the wall. To create the flying effects of Viserion and the wall crumbling, the production crew used a spider cam, which moves about 70 miles per hour on a steel cable. They also incorporated high-powered drones to create the feeling of being above everyone as fire rains down. Battle of the Bastards. When the showdown between Ramsay Bolton and Jon Snow occurred during the second-to-last episode of Season 6, it was the most intense Game of Thrones scene ever created. The moment was tense, filled with conflict for the safety of Jon Snow. Will he fall victim to Ramsay's psychological terror and the murderous rampage of the creator George R.R. Martin? Or will Snow come out on top, victorious? The devastating battle between the two armies was almost entirely special effects, with little practical effects. Director Miguel Sapochny has spoken out on his inspiration, pointing to the acclaimed classic Ran, directed by Akira Kurosawa. The main job to create the effects for the sequence was awarded to an Australian-based VFX studio called Lura. They created over 400 jaw-dropping shots and were able to fool us into believing they were over 3,000 soldiers. This doesn't include the thousands of weapons, hundreds of body parts, horses, smoke, mud, mist, and fire. They were able to do all of this by utilizing a hybrid of real people and animals and then duplicating them on the battlefield. Arguably, the best moment from this battle was the 42-second uninterrupted lawn take following Jon Snow from behind as he fights his way through the front lines. Battle scenes. Every battle scene is epic and breathtaking. They leave you with the intensity like you yourself just went through the battle. But none of it really happened, we know this, and yet we still feel as though it's real. About the only real stuff in the scenes are a handful of actors and their costume is mentioned. Everything else is CGI. Everything. From the grass and dirt they trample on into battle to the clouds in the sky. When a character peers out from the safety of their castle tower down onto the battlefield, the only real thing is the actors and some foam set pieces designed to look like a castle. When a character is speared or has their head chopped off, most of that is all CGI and VFX. There is minimal practical effects for a starting point, and the rest is enhanced digitally to have the viewer gush with awe or disgust. But how do they get all those photoreal soldiers to battle one another? To simplify terms, VFX teams bring in characters and place them on a green screen. Here they have them go through actions and battle swings, stand on top of horses, or thrust their spear into thin air. The VFX team then take all these characters and place them on the CGI battlefield. Arya face mask. Out of all the Game of Thrones special effects revealed throughout here and the internet, are not as mind-blowing as Arya and her face mask, purely because you never realized the pulling off of her mask was CGI. Honestly, no one really knew this was CGI'd. You and everyone else probably thought they were just some really badass skin masks fitted to Arya's face. Nope. These were for the most part CGI'd so brilliantly, no one knew until Zoic Studios' VFX team released a reel showing the effects they created. First off, the Zoic team has not released full details on their work. All they have released is a reel showing the mind-blowing, subtle work they created. What Zoic Studios did first was to start off with a shot of Arya pretending to pull off a mask from her face. And we don't mean she peeled off a green screen mask. She literally just waved her hand in front of her face and pulled up. Zoic then created a full-on CGI skin mask and tracked her hand movements. The final results are subtle but stunning and insanely lifelike. This type of careful crafted VFX definitely makes you think twice if anything is even real in life anymore.
Yunkai, the Yellow City.
Seven Kingdoms. Watching movies and shows based in the past are very expensive. If something occurs in the 1970s, you gotta make sure all the cars, clothing, and buildings match the time period. Something from the 1920s will be completely different, obviously, from the 1970s, and requires even more attention to detail because of the age and scarcity of the materials. But what about when filming something from time periods they never existed in our universe? How do you match building from those time periods? Well, you can't. Everything has to be built from scratch. Luckily, there are mind-blowing techniques VFX companies like Rodeo utilize to immerse us into worlds like Westeros or King's Landings or the North. The before and after of these are phenomenal. Actors walk into town with nothing more than a few trees in front of them. Then VFX teams like Rodeo take the images and design entire cities, carving away digital at everything around the actor, so the resulting shot looks nothing like the original. They create the clouds in the sky, the mountains in the background, the towering pyramid buildings and fortified castle entries. Typically, there's not one speck of imagery on screen not digitally enhanced. In the end, we never doubt these cities don't exist.
Euron.
Sailing. Now, when it comes to special effects in Game of Thrones, there's an endless supply of kick-ass stuff to talk about. From fires to explosions, from dragons to people melting, and so much more. But let's take a step back and truly appreciate the less-known details which go into this show, like the boats sailing. You may not have realized how mind-blowing these effects are because they aren't in your face, aggressively yelling at you for attention. Pretty much every single large ship, boat, or however you'd like to call them, is 100% computer-generated imagery, or CGI for you brevity-stricken lovers. Entire fleets were created piece by piece in a 3D world and composited together. From the hull to the deck to the ornate designs to the people walking on it, to the flailing of the sail in the wind, and especially all the perfectly circling birds in the air. But what good is a 3D ship if it doesn't move through water? This is just another effect you have no idea was blowing your mind. The water is also all CGI, down to the whitewash spewing up as the ship cuts through the water.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. There is no middle ground.
The entire show. This may seem like a cop-out, but it's not. Hear us out. There were plenty of other scenes to discuss and break down, but at the end of the day, there's no other special effect more mind-blowing than the creation of the show itself. When Game of Thrones was first published in August of 1996, the entire world was not in love with the series. Yes, readers of the book fell in love with it. Even then though, when Martin started going on chapter-long rants describing the food in detail, or worse, killing off every main character, it was a hit or miss with readers. Turning the book series into what it has become was no automatic success. It was partly due to the brilliant characters and story created by Martin, but all the credit for making it a worldwide phenomenon is owed to the creative brain trust which brought the world to life. Not one moment in this show passes with the feeling of it feeling fake. Every location, character, prop, snowflake, fire, and so much more leaves the viewer never questioning whether what they were watching is taking place in a real environment. It's easy to write about something. Bringing it to life for the eyes to see is a whole other thing, which has been done perfectly.
Fine work, as always. Well done.
Which of these special effects did you enjoy the most? What special effects scenes would you add? Let us know in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to share and like this video and click that subscribe button to join our notification squad so you can stay up to date with all our videos. You don't want your friends to know more than you do ya? Thanks for watching. Until next time.